So I went to Portugal, I had a blast, but it's that attitude of not caring that was keeping me stuck, stagnant, and broke. This is a process that, I'm not going to lie, has taken time and very conscious effort as you go along. But I've noticed that these 5 things have really transformed the game, and today I want to share them with you. Brekkie is done. You guys know I share it all the time on Instagram stories. Breakfast is like the one thing I need every day. No matter what time it is, I start off with that. So smoothie and bagel done. Now we can get to the filming. And the truth is, that's pretty much the first thing I learned. When we're tied to the mentality of what is each thing worth, like we just see the money for the money, we don't really see outside of it. So one thing I was always doing was watching what I was spending, right? You're tracking it. You might know how much exactly you have for each little thing. So you don't want to go outside of those measurements. But what we don't notice most of the time is that it's far more than just this monetary value equals this monetary value. At the moment, I'm currently in Thailand. I've pretty much been living here for the past 3 months. I guess you could say we're dipping our feet into like the digital nomad world. And we don't have groceries. Normally do like granolas or things like that easy for breakfast. So we get to it and get to work because we are working in the mornings, but we ran out. We could order, but that takes some time. We could go out, but that takes some time. Sometimes it's just a lot easier to grab the application and literally order when you know your time is accounted for. A huge mental shift I've been working on is basically, how much is my time worth? If I can pay a little extra, but it saves me so much time, that is worth it. Because with time, you do far more. With time, I can be recording. With time, I could be reaching out to clients. With time, I could be generating something for my business. I could be on more meetings. There's just so much more to it that if you're tied directly to, I'm not spending because this is what I see and this is this and this equals that, right? You're only thinking of that monetary value. You don't allow yourself to think further of, okay, what is this actually worth and what is this actually interchangeable with? Like, for example, getting laundry done and not spending 3 hours washing and folding, but actually paying a couple bucks to get that done. Those hours turn into productive hours that you could be doing something else. Now, disclaimer for point number 2, this is my personal journey. I'm sharing from my personal life experiences. If you don't agree, I think that's wonderful, but this is personally what I've learned, and honestly something that I think has to be shared. Number 2 is being an employee. And wait, this doesn't necessarily mean that I think everybody needs to go out and start a business. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I've noticed that my mindset shift completely when I started building, growing, and launching a business. Before that, because trust me, I've worked in the corporate world. I've had plenty of jobs. I worked all my college years and I loved it. Like bank jobs, dealership jobs. Like, I loved it. I had so much fun. And I honestly thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder. So I'm right there with you if that's you. But the thing is that at that time, when I was seeing my bank account and I was thinking, wow, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could spend more on this or travel here, then I would think, okay, what can I do to make more money? And the first thing I would do is like go on job searching sites. Like, who can hire me? Like, should I babysit on the side? Should I do this? Like, what can I do to earn more income? It was always basically, how can I trade my time for more money? And even when I decided to work like 80 hours a week because I wanted to save up for my study abroad trip in Portugal, which we're gonna get into that, I literally, what I did was I went to my manager and I was like, I'm working like full days. I'm gonna work in 2 departments at the dealership so I can make as much before going on my trip. Now, as a business owner, I've seen the drastic change in that. I no longer think about changing my time, but changing the offerings, changing the pricing model. I know that my time doesn't have to be tied with the money I'm bringing in. And that's huge. And I'm an open book about it. If you're in my close circle and you're telling me, for example, like, oh, I wish I had this amount to go on this trip or to buy this or do this, I always give you my own personal experience and my advice from it, from what has worked for me. But the biggest thing I've noticed that keeps people back, and I know it was happening to me too, is that self-talk that we have. The, oh, I'm so poor. And we don't even say it like consciously because it's become so normal that it's kind of like something that you just brush off and say to everyone. Like, how many times have we said like, oh no, my bank account is at zero, or oh, I could definitely not afford that, or that's not for me. Things like that that just automatically come up. But if we're not cautious enough at stopping them, that's just going to continue. And that's what I'm saying. It's been an active job of that thought comes up, hold on, I'm not going to say it, and let me transform it. So I know I mentioned that study abroad Portugal trip, and I think that was just like a huge moment in my life of just so many things put together that now looking back, I'm like, wow, I've learned from that experience. I would do it differently now. Also knowing that that life experience, it has been one of the best trips in my life. And it's actually a huge pinch me moment. I know I kind of teased it in the video previously that I was working with Fiverr and that we were gonna go on a trip. I can now officially share it. I'm going back to Portugal, and the craziest part is that I'm literally going with Fiverr and Selena, which are two companies that I absolutely love and adore. So basically rewinding to Laura in those college years, at that moment, what I was thinking is basically, I don't care what happens, right? I took out credit cards to go on the trip. I know I worked those 80 hours like for a month before going on that trip, but I applied to multiple credit cards so I could take those credit cards, literally have a zero balance, but like use them over there. And at that moment, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, the experience is worth much more, and I'll come back and I'll just pay it off. For a lot of years, that was my mentality with money. It's okay, let's live, let's experience, I'll pay it off later. And yes, it got me really great experiences, I'm not gonna lie. But it's also that feeling of just like not caring and not taking ownership that I think doesn't allow you to grow. Like, yes, you can experience things and then you're just gonna work your butt off to pay it off. But I don't think that's the mature way of going around it. So I went to Portugal, I had a blast, but it's that attitude of not caring that was keeping me stuck, stagnant, and broke. So when I would get done with those experiences, my mind was always on, let's pay it back, let's find that job, let's work those hours and pay those bills down. The thing is, I also realized that when you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're cutting yourself short. There's only so many hours you're willing to put into a job that you don't like, doing something that you don't like. But boy, oh boy, start doing something that you love and you're passionate about, and the time flies by. 40 hours a week, you don't even notice that. And I'm not saying to overwork and burn out and go crazy. It's just the passion and like the fuel inside of you. That's a totally different game. And I know throughout my content, I've shared a lot of ways to make money, but I never want it to be understood as I'm sharing ways to just make quick cash. What I really would love that you guys take from my content is to actually find something that each person likes, right? It's different for each person. And then you use those strategies that I share to actually make you money while you're doing something you love. So for example, my mom, if you've seen her on IG stories, like, she loves nutrition and wellness and working out. She's always loved that. And when she does that and she pairs that with content strategies, she's just having fun and she's monetizing something that she's automatically like doing day by day. When you, for example, as someone who loves working with kids, starts creating videos for kids to learn online, or you launch your own course, or you offer one-on-one sessions and you start promoting them using the strategies that I share here on my channel, yes, you're making money, and yes, you're making money online, but you're doing it with something that you love, not just because I'm telling you, hey, post this video because it's gonna get you this amount of money, you start posting things that you don't like. That's basically the same exact thing as you sitting in a job that you don't like in exchange for a paycheck. That's just not what I want and not what I promote. So I changed all of this around. I did a complete 180. I stopped just seeing things for what they were worth, like money to money, but I started thinking, okay, if I spend a little more, what can this get me? What can I get it as an output of this? I changed my mentality and knew that my time wasn't being exchanged for money, but that I could generate an income in other different ways. Woo! A fly. I totally transformed my self-talk. To this day, I work on it. I'm not saying that I don't get those thoughts of, oh my God, this is expensive, or oh my gosh, can I really pay for this? But I stop. I catch it and I transform it actively. I started actually caring about my finances and not just thinking of, let's spend, I'll think about that later. And I focused on doing something that I loved and that was going to bring in income while I literally found a way to put out things that I'm passionate about. If you had to pinpoint one thing that was keeping you back, holding you stagnant, what would it be?